You ever look around the world and just feel like something's not quite right? Like we're all trying to build something, but we're working from a broken blueprint. Well, today we're going to dive into an ancient guidebook that offers a timeless plan for navigating our very modern lives. We're going to go right back to the beginning to see what this blueprint says and what it means for us today. So, the story kicks off with this incredibly powerful idea. The original blueprint says humanity was created in God's image. Now, it's so important to get this right. This image isn't about what we look like. It's about what we're supposed to do. It's a role, a purpose, to be God's representatives here on earth, reflecting His good character and creating a world where even more goodness and life can flourish. I mean, think about that setup. We were given this amazing purpose, a beautiful place to start, and a direct partnership with the creator of the universe. It was perfect. So the question that just hangs in the air, the one that sets up the rest of the entire story is, what went wrong? And the answer lies right here, in our first section, the original blueprint. It all came down to that purpose we just talked about and a single, absolutely critical choice that had to be made. Here's the choice laid out, plain and simple. On one side, you have the path of trusting God's wisdom, which leads to connection in life. But on the other side, well, that's the path of seeking human autonomy. It's humanity saying, you know what, I think I'll define good and evil for myself. And this wasn't just a mistake, it was a rebellion against the very source of life itself. That one choice, it fractured the entire blueprint. And that brings us right into our second section, a world off course. Because that act of rebellion, it wasn't a one-and-done deal. It sent everything into a downward spiral. And you can see the cracks start to appear almost immediately in our relationships. And I mean, the breakdown is immediate, and it is brutal. The very first brothers, Cain and Abel, their story becomes one of jealousy and murder. Cain then goes on to build a city, and it's a city defined by violence and oppression. It gets so bad that his descendant Lamech is actually bragging about being even more violent and vengeful than Cain ever was. The human family is just falling apart. And what starts as personal dysfunction, well, it eventually scales up to the collective level. At the city of Babel, you see humanity unite, but it's around their own arrogance. They use all this new technology not to partner with their creator, but to build a massive tower to make a name for themselves. See, it's the exact same rebellion from the garden, just supersized. And the result wasn't unity. It was division, confusion, and scattering. Fast forward a few centuries, and the prophet Ezekiel looks at the world around him and gives this devastating diagnosis. He says the problem isn't just that people are behaving badly. It's worse. They can't even tell the difference between what's sacred and what's not anymore. And their leaders? Oh, they're just patching things up with weak plaster, offering easy, feel-good answers instead of dealing with the deep, structural rot. So, in a world that's basically lost its moral compass, how in the world do you find your way? This is where the Bible offers something incredibly practical. It's a guidebook for navigating the chaos, the book of Proverbs. A collection of pure, timeless wisdom for everyday life. Okay, so the starting line for all of this wisdom is a concept called the fear of the Lord. And we have to be super clear here. This does not mean being terrified of God, not at all. Think of it more like a deep respect, a profound reverence for His wisdom and for the moral reality that's woven into the fabric of the universe. It's the humility to say, I don't get to define good and evil. I need to align myself with the one who does. And this guidebook makes it really clear what the grand prize is. In a world that's constantly chasing money and status, wisdom is presented as something infinitely more valuable. And why is that? Because wisdom guides you in every other area of your life, while gold and silver on their own can't buy you peace or purpose or real happiness. So what does this wisdom actually look like in practice? The book of Proverbs isn't some abstract philosophy class. It is a hands-on manual for making practical daily choices. It's literally about rebuilding our lives one wise decision at a time. First up, we have to master our words. Proverbs is obsessed with the power of our tongue. Just think about it. A gentle answer can completely diffuse a tense argument, right? Where harsh words would just pour gasoline on the fire. It also warns that speaking before you've truly listened is just pure foolishness. And man, we can all relate to that one. It even says that a true friend will sometimes tell you a hard truth, what it calls a faithful wound, because it comes from a place of love. Our words literally have the power of life and death. Next up, it's about choosing your path through your actions. The company you keep, absolutely critical. As Proverbs says, walk with the wise and become wise. You are shaped by the people you surround yourself with. The book praises hard work and looking ahead, but it warns that laziness just leads to ruin. And it gives us this fascinating balance. Yeah, you're responsible for planning your course and making choices, but you do it with the humility of knowing that ultimately, God is the one who establishes your steps. So here's the bottom line. Proverbs constantly lays out these two distinct paths, the way of the wise and the way of the fool. The wise person, they're humble, patient, honest, and actually open to being corrected. The fool, on the other hand, is proud, impulsive, dishonest, and is always looking for excuses instead of taking responsibility. Every single day, with every choice we make, we're walking down one of these two paths. And sometimes the barrier between those two paths isn't a lack of knowledge, it's our own inaction. You know what you need to do, but you just keep putting it off, waiting to feel ready. But wisdom isn't a feeling, it's an action. It's choosing to start, even when you're scared, even when you feel stuck, because deep down, you're sabotaging your own potential by waiting. And this brings us to our final section, the promise of restoration. Because the goal of all this wisdom, it's not just about having a more successful, less chaotic life for yourself. No, it connects all the way back to that original blueprint that we started with at the very beginning. Remember the prophet Ezekiel? Well, God gives him another vision, and it is bleak, a valley filled with dry, scattered human bones. It's the ultimate picture of death and a generation that has lost all spiritual life. It is absolute hopelessness. And then God asks this haunting question, Son of man, can these bones live? Now, humanly speaking, the answer is no way. But with God, there's always hope for restoration, and that's the real ultimate purpose of wisdom. It's not just self-improvement, it's about becoming the kind of people who can partner with God in His work of restoring what's been broken in the world. And that work starts with ourselves. So this grand, cosmic story of restoration, of bringing dry bones back to life, it's not some far-off, abstract idea. It begins in the small, seemingly insignificant moments of our day. Wisdom is the practical path to rebuilding, and it literally starts with your very next choice. And that brings us to the final question I want to leave with you. The blueprint for wisdom has been laid out, from our original purpose all the way to the path for restoration. So what is one wise choice in your words, in your work, in your relationships that you can make today to start rebuilding your corner of the world?